The boos hit before the first snap, not at the refs, not at the opponents, but at their own coach. Hundreds of fans stood up, furious, waving signs that said #FreeShedeur. Some chanted for Kevin Stefanski to be fired before the team even finished warm-ups. On social media, it was already a war zone. #FireStefanski was trending nationwide, and the Browns hadn't even lost yet. This wasn't just frustration over a bad play call. This wasn't a slow start or a tough matchup. No. Cleveland fans were watching in disbelief as the one quarterback who gave them hope didn't even take the field. How did Shedeur Sanders go from breakout rookie to buried on the bench in just 7 days? The answer? It's messier than anyone expected. Because what started as a coaching decision spiraled into something. When training camp opened in Cleveland, Shedeur Sanders wasn't on anyone's radar. He wasn't a top draft pick, he wasn't the media favorite, and he definitely wasn't in the quarterback conversation, at least not seriously. Most analysts labeled him a developmental project. He was buried behind seasoned starters, talked about like a long shot. And for fans clinging to yet another promised new era in Cleveland, Sanders wasn't even part of the storyline. That all changed in a single preseason game. When Sanders stepped onto the field against the Panthers, it wasn't supposed to matter. Third-string snaps, end of the depth chart. But from the moment he took control of the huddle, it felt different. He played with poise, confidence, command. In just 3 quarters, he threw for 138 yards, punched in 2 touchdowns, added nearly 20 on the ground, and most importantly, didn't make a single mistake. No forced throws, no panic under pressure, no rookie moment. Instead, fans saw something Cleveland hadn't had in years, a quarterback that made it look easy. The highlight reels erupted almost instantly. On Twitter, fans were already posting, "Who is this guy? We've got something here. Let him cook." Even national reporters took notice, calling him the most polished rookie performance of the week. And just like that, momentum was born. Inside the locker room, teammates were buzzing. On the outside, fans were suddenly asking, "Is Shedeur our guy?" It was the kind of rise you don't expect, but can't ignore. He wasn't just playing well, he was igniting hope. But just when it felt like something special was building, that fire was extinguished overnight. Cleveland was buzzing. The moment Shedeur Sanders walked off that preseason field, fans were already circling the next game on their calendars. They weren't hoping he'd play again. Nothing. No press conference, no update, not even a quote from Stefanski about a tough decision. Just silence. In the stadium, you could feel the confusion turn to frustration. All that energy the fans had, gone. The cheers died before kickoff. They'd seen this story before, and it never ended well. Online, theories started flying. Is Stefanski protecting someone? This can't be about football. No way this isn't deliberate. To the fans, it felt personal, like the team had just slammed the brakes on something they didn't want getting out of control. But control of what? Talent? Hype? Or maybe the truth? Either way, it didn't sit right. And just when it couldn't get more bizarre, the injury story dropped. Just days after Shedeur Sanders lit up the preseason, and just 1 week after Sanders ruled out with minor injury. At first glance, it sounded reasonable. Guys tweak things in camp all the time. A precautionary rest, the team called it. But the timing? Way too clean. Sanders hadn't shown one sign of discomfort. Not during the game, not walking off the field, and not in the locker room. No limp, no brace, no mention in interviews. Nothing to even hint something was off. So when Stefanski suddenly declared him unavailable, fans started connecting dots the team hoped they wouldn't. Because now, it wasn't just he's not starting. Now it was he can't even suit up. Cleveland fans aren't new to disappointment, but they've seen enough to know when something smells off. And this felt like damage control. If Sanders had played again and played well, Stefanski's choice would have been impossible to justify. There'd be no rookie development excuse, no depth chart needs. Another strong performance would have made benching him after that a PR nightmare. So, limit the reps, throw in a conveniently timed injury, quiet the noise. At least, that's what the internet was saying. One tweet summed it up perfectly. Funny how these minor injuries only happen to guys outperforming the coach's plan. Even insiders were raising eyebrows. Some reporters hinted that the injury excuse felt too clean. Others quietly mentioned that keeping a hot rookie sidelined makes it easier to ride out unwanted controversy. Was Sanders really hurt? Or just shut down before he caused a full-on quarterback crisis? We may never know the full truth. But whatever happened, fans weren't buying it. And what came next would send the entire Browns fan base into full rebellion mode. By now, Cleveland fans weren't just mad. They were convinced something shady was happening behind the scenes, and Shedeur Sanders was at the center of it. What started as confusion over a sudden benching had now turned into online detective work. Twitter threads started breaking down snap counts. Reddit dug into old pressers, searching for subtle signs. YouTube comments filled with fire emojis and quotes like, "They're burying the kid." This isn't mismanagement, it's sabotage. They never wanted him to succeed. As the theory spread, the narrative began shifting. It wasn't just about what Stefanski did, it was about why. And if these fan-sourced breakdowns were even half true, it wasn't a football decision at all. Some claimed there was favoritism inside the QB room. Others said the front office. And then there were the deeper whispers that Sanders' reps had been limited during training camp on purpose, that he was never going to be given a fair shot no matter how well he played, because giving him a real opportunity meant opening the door to controversy the team didn't want to manage. And the more people looked, the more it started to look like they had a point. After all, what team benches its best performing rookie, ejects him from the depth chart without explanation, then announces a last-minute injury before he can step back onto the field? To fans, it felt like the Browns weren't allowing Sanders the chance to earn the job, because they were afraid he might actually win it. And whether the theories were fact or fantasy, one thing was undeniable: the trust was gone. And when you lose the fans, you better hope the locker room still has your back. Spoiler, the fans had already made up their minds, but inside the Browns locker room, things were about to get even more complicated. NFL players aren't just athletes, they're observers. They know when something doesn't sit right. And according to multiple quiet reports, some of them were just as confused as the fans. Whispers started circulating that veterans on the team, players who'd seen dozens of rookies come and go, were openly questioning the coaching decisions. Privately, a few even asked, "Why isn't Sanders getting another shot? What more did he need to do?" Some even took it a step further. A handful of players reportedly went directly to Stefanski behind closed doors, asking for clarity. But according to inside leaks, the answers were vague, empty, no accountability, just coach speak. And it wasn't just about Sanders anymore. When a player excels and still gets benched, it sends a message to the rest of the team. Performance doesn't matter. Politics do. That's the kind of atmosphere that cracks locker rooms in half. Some teammates reportedly made a point to pull Sanders aside, telling him to keep his head up, that the situation wasn't right, and that his time would come. But behind those words was something else: frustration. Not just for him, but for what it meant about the team's direction. Leadership, once solid, was now surrounded by doubt. Belief in the coaching staff? Slipping fast. Trust in Stefanski? Hanging by a thread. Because when even players start to wonder if you're sabotaging your own roster, you've already lost the locker room. And once you lose that, everything else follows. Morale dips. Unity fades. And culture gone. How long can Stefanski hold the team together before the whole thing blew up in his face? And as Cleveland's fan base went from angry to outright rebellious, Stefanski found himself in the one place no head coach wants to be: alone. By this point, Kevin Stefanski wasn't just under pressure, he was under fire. Every local radio show in Cleveland was ripping into him. Every press conference felt like a trial, and every time the camera panned to Dillon Gabriel taking starting reps, the stadium erupted in boos. Hashtag Fire Stefanski wasn't just a trending tag anymore. It became a full-blown movement. Even the media, usually diplomatic when it comes to coaches, started pulling zero punches. National analysts called the benching a catastrophic misfire. Former players tweeted that Stefanski was torching trust inside that building. And rival fans? They were confused too. Not mocking, not laughing, genuinely confused. Because on paper, none of it made sense. Gabriel struggled again and again. Missed throws, inefficient drives, no rhythm with the offense. He wasn't terrible, but he wasn't winning anybody games. And what stung the most? He was handed the starting role without ever earning it in front of the fans' eyes. Meanwhile, Sanders, the only QB who had actually sparked momentum, remained invisible. Stefanski tried to stay composed in front of cameras. He called it developmental strategy, said it's about long-term plans, threw out phrases like team balance and situational depth. But you can't coach your way out of mistrust. And behind the curtain, insiders claimed the locker room had gone cold. Fractured relationships, players going quiet. Even assistant coaches started becoming noticeably tight-lipped. Because on paper, none of it made sense. Gabriel struggled again and again. Missed throws, inefficient drives, no rhythm with the offense. He wasn't terrible, but he wasn't winning anybody games. And what stung the most? He was handed the starting role without ever earning it in front of the fans' eyes. Meanwhile, Sanders, the only QB who had actually sparked momentum, remained invisible. Stefanski tried to stay composed in front of cameras. He called it developmental strategy, said it's about long-term plans, threw out phrases like team balance and situational depth. But you can't coach your way out of mistrust. And behind the curtain, insiders claimed the locker room had gone cold. Fractured relationships, players going quiet. Even assistant coaches started becoming noticeably tight-lipped. It was no longer about a bad call. It was about leadership. Stefanski bet his job on a quarterback that fans didn't believe in and ignored the one player Cleveland wanted to believe in. Now he wasn't just losing games. He was losing credibility, losing players, and for the first time in his tenure, he was running out of time. But the fallout wasn't finished, because the front office was watching too. And the next move they made could change everything. Right now, the Cleveland Browns are staring down a moment that could define their next decade. They've got a city on edge, a locker room walking on eggshells, and a coaching staff clinging to a decision that might have already sealed their fate. Every time Dillon Gabriel takes the field, the boos get louder. Every snap Sanders doesn't play just adds fuel to the fire. The front office has said nothing, at least not publicly. But the silence? It's saying everything. Insiders claim Stefanski's seat is no longer warm. It's scorching. Some reports even suggest the team is quietly evaluating replacements, just in case. Because when fan trust collapses and locker room chemistry cracks, organizations only have two choices: double down or pivot. The real question is, will the Browns finally correct course? Or will they dig in even deeper, burying Sanders, doubling down on Gabriel, and risking a full-year meltdown just to protect a fragile ego? What makes this situation so brutal is that it didn't have to unravel like this. Sanders gave them a spark, a burst of energy, a reason to believe, and instead of nurturing that momentum, they stomped it out. Was it football logic? Was it politics? Or was it something deeper that fans were never meant to see? Either way, the message was clear. Hope isn't enough in Cleveland. You need the right stamp of approval behind closed doors, or you're left in the shadows. But as history has shown, the shadows don't stay quiet for long. Now, the Browns stand at a crossroads. Do they fix the mess, or let it consume them? Fans are watching. So are players. And so is Sanders. Quiet, locked in, and waiting. Because if he gets even one more shot, he might not just flip the narrative. He might force the Browns to face the one thing they've tried to ignore all along, that he's exactly what this team has been missing.